beautiful saints. Welcome to another spectacular episode of Catholic Faith Forum. I'm Evelyn Iwonha, and on today's episode, we will be discussing a controversial topic. Is sex chatting a sin? In light of increasing use of technology for sexual communication, sex chatting has raised ethical and moral questions, particularly in cases when participants do not fully understand the consequences of sharing sexual content online. Joining me in this discussion is a very special guest that we'll meet when we return from this break. Stay with us. Welcome back, and if you're joining us for the first time, this is Catholic Faith Forum. I am Evelyn Iwonha, and our discussion today is centered on, is sex chatting a sin? It's my pleasure to introduce to you my very special guest in person of Reverend Father Paul Akpomie. You're very much welcome, Padre. It's good to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Reverend Father Paul Akpomie, OP, is a Catholic priest and a Dominican, an adjunct lecturer of Islam at the Dominican University and Dominican Institute. He is the superior of St. Thomas Aquinas Priory, the House of Formation in Ibadan. He enjoys hiking, football, music, and working with youth. He is also a Christian content creative on social media. Thank you very much, Padre.
Pleasure.
Thank you. In the light of the increasing use of technology for sexual communication, what is your perspective on the term sex chatting?
The term sex chatting could be defined as using social media to pursue sexual pleasures.
Wow.
And that can take various ramifications.
Okay.
It could be nudity, it could be sensual words. It could actually lead to masturbation, and the likes. Yeah.
So why do you think people engage in this kind of behavior?
First things first, I would say because there's poor education about sexuality and the dignity of the human person. And when there's a very low and faulty foundation concerning the place of sexual expression within relationships and adults, whether young or older persons, then you have these problems emerge.
Do you think it's justifiable for individuals who engage in sharing sexual content online for income, for the generation of income? Do you think it's justifiable? Does it make it right for them?
No, it's not justifiable for this singular reason. When you pursue financial gains through sexual content via media, you're actually turning the human person to an object for sexual gratification,
Wow.
an object for commercial use.
How? Like, in what sense? Buttress the point.
Every human person, from Genesis account, we're told God created male and female and said it was good.
Yeah.
We have been created for goodness, and everything about us was created for that purpose. Our sexual inclinations, our sexual faculties and powers are good and get towards that goodness. The goodness is to bring about man and woman fully alive, fully cooperative with God's will and plans for them.
Yeah.
Concerning these aspects, when we now turn our sexual faculties and inclinations towards acquiring financial gains, we no longer act as men and women, human persons who have been given a dignity in the image of God. Rather, we are turning the human person to an object. For instance, I have this pillow here. All right, it's an object. I can decide to do what I want with this. Okay? The pillow does not have a right. Singularly because it does not have a foundation as an image or likeness of God. A human person enjoys all that. And to turn that person to this for financial gain, no.
Padre, you earlier mentioned that sex chatting could lead to masturbation. What other risks are associated with sex chatting?
One thing you must put in mind is that the social media is a platform for communication. It bridges that distance or need for proximity between persons. However, it is not a closed system. It's also an open system. Not everything you put through this platform is secure. So it can actually be leaked. It could be hacked, released. These are things you don't want out there, and then it is out there. It's a danger.
How do you agree that couples should sex chat?
Nope.
And why do you say that?
Everything is created for an end. A couple, a husband and a wife, who have been sacramentally brought together in marriage, have a duty to one another. And one of those goods of marriage is actually conjugal relationship between them, okay? For conjugal relationship as an expression of love within marriage between a man and a woman to take place, there's need for physical presence, complete willful giving of one another, openness to life. Now, when there's sex chatting via the social media, these elements are absent. So instead of these persons giving themselves, two persons coming as one, it is no longer that. It is two individuals at different spots using the other person to achieve a particular end, a sexual gratification, a desire for union that cannot be achieved done separately. And that is not open to life. Obviously, there's not going to be any procedure for life.
Padre, please hold that thought. We will take a break to find out who the saint of the week is. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Our saint of the week is Saint Mary of Edessa. Also known as the Harlot Saint, Saint Mary of Edessa began her life as Maria, the daughter of a wealthy family. She was just 7 when both her parents died, and she was adopted by her uncle, Saint Abraham Kidunea, and began a life of holiness through his teachings. Yet, as a young woman, she gave herself to a man who happened to be a dissonant monk. Horrified by her sin, she abandoned her uncle quietly and fled to the brothel where she lived as the sinner she believed she was destined to be. Meanwhile, her uncle, Father Abraham, was oblivious to all that had happened. But that night, he had a vision of a dragon consuming a dove. 2 days later, he saw the same dragon with its belly torn open. He reached in to pull out the dove, miraculously unharmed. When he called out to his niece to tell her about it and received no answer, Abraham realized that she was the subject of the vision. The devil had carried off the daughter of his soul, and all he could do in her absence was to pray for her. This he did for 2 years. Finally, a report reached him that his sweet, pure Mary was living the harlot's life. Had she known that he would learn of her lifestyle, Mary likely would have expected him to be disgusted and dismissive. But Father Abraham was a Christian, a priest, and a spiritual father. Like the Good Shepherd, he was off without a moment's hesitation, eager to bring his lost lamb home. He made an appointment with Mary the prostitute, who didn't recognize him until he began to weep. Moved by her uncle's love, Mary repented and returned home. Within 3 years, God testified to her true conversion and his abundant mercy by giving her the gift of miracles. More than just being returned to her original state of holiness, Mary was brought through wickedness to greater prayer, greater virtue, and greater power in Christ. While he spoke to Mary in her brothel, St. Abraham reminded her, "There is nothing new in falling down in the contest. The wicked thing is to keep on lying there." St. Mary of Edessa is a powerful witness to what God is capable of when we offer him our sin, and what we are capable of when we don't. Her feast day is October 29, and she is the patron of fighting sexual temptation. So let's ask her intercession for those who have loved Jesus but have fallen away, that they would have the courage to confess their sins and be reborn. Saint Mary of Edessa, pray for us. Welcome back, and our discussion is still centered on, is sex chatting a sin? Just before the break, Padre, you were emphasizing on the importance of physical presence between a couple. And then you were stating that for a couple to be sex chatting means that they are using each other to satisfy a physical need when they are at long distance. So, Padre, what would you advise couples who sex chat?
Desist. That's just the advice. You desist from it. Actually, there's a tendency that many people do not really understand the place of sex within relationships. I have a loose definition for sexuality. I say it is the total integration of the human person, the good of the human person. It is a total integration of the good of the human person. In other words, everything. My looks, my family, my charisms, my desire to have friends, my creativity, all are expressions of sexuality.
Wow.
And often, people tend to think of sexuality as just sexual intercourse. Sexual intercourse is a minute aspect of sexuality of the human person. Sexual intercourse is an aspect that takes place within marriage. Friendship, sexuality. Warmth, sexuality. Affirmation, sexuality. Your spiritual desire for the other, God, is sexuality. And many times there's a lack in some of these aspects, and because of the poor education many people have about sexuality, we streamline our minds and think it is conjugal union the person lacks, but that's not the case. Permit me to make a story here. While I was in school, I came to this knowledge when one of our course roommates felt, well, he wasn't just feeling good that day, and the advice of roommates were, oh boy, you need tender loving care, TLC. Go meet your girlfriend, have a nice time. And while our roommate just dressed up, thinking he was going there, one of us, I don't even know why he said that. This was in our third year, and I said, probably you miss your parents. And our roommate just left the room. He came back late that evening, and we were expecting to hear stories of his exploits with his girlfriend. He was so happy, consoled, and everything. I was smiling. I was saying, share, what went on? And he said, oh, I called my mom, I called my brother, and you couldn't believe, he kept laughing, smiling, and we were looking at ourselves like, excuse me. He was fulfilled, he was happy. So what he actually was craving for was communion, union with people he loved. We interpreted it as missing his girlfriend or getting involved in sexual intercourse, but that wasn't the case. So there's a need for proper education. Yeah.
So, Padre, how can individuals balance the desire for sexual expression and exploration with the need to maintain healthy relationships and, engage in responsible sexual behaviors?
Yeah. Like I said, education matters. Yeah. If you have proper education concerning sexuality, then you're likely able to make real mature decisions about your expressions. Many people do not explore the realm of sexuality that gives that individual the opportunity to express themselves in other forms other than in sexual intercourse. Yeah, so what I'll advise our young persons here online, it will be that you first invest in yourself. If you go into a relationship looking for affirmation from your significant other, I'll just use the term, you're on a long thing. Because if you yourself you're not completely whole and affirmative of your value, the other person will define that value for you. And if that person says, I want us to have sexual chats, then you are willing to give in because you think that by doing that, it validates your worth. And that's not the case. So only when you work on yourself first and you are ready for a relationship, you go into that. Secondly, there's need for dialogue. Often people go into relationships based on emotive principles. Sure. But there's also the part of reason. Love is not just those butterflies. No, this has to come in. Yeah. Why are we in this relationship? What are the lines? What are the principles we share? Do we have common goals? Are these principles things that we share and want to build on? So if you have those definitive statements within your relationship and you're able to discuss them, then it helps. When it comes to sexual expressions, you cannot help it sometimes. You are there with the person, these overwhelming feelings come in. But when there's proper understanding between persons, for instance, if I was a single man and we were in a relationship and we had arrived at this relationship, and well, in this relationship, we want to keep clean and godly and no sex, no nothing. Even when I may be sexually turned on or you may be sexually turned on, because of that understanding, the other party is willing to help this party and say, remember what we decided on.
Yeah.
I'm going to be with you. We're not going into this. Secondly, with that understanding, you also create environments where you do not find yourself in such compromising situations. One of that will also be through social media. Whenever you're feeling horny or feeling sexually turned on, don't call me.
Wow.
It's not what you need. So that's very important.
Padre, I don't want to confuse sexual purity with sexual virginity. Virginity, people say, okay, I'm abstaining from sex,
Okay.
I'm a virgin, but sex chatting is more of, there's no physical contact, you get? There's no physical contact in any form, and the person will still claim that, okay, yeah, I'm a virgin. But sex chatting, do you agree that it defiles sexual purity?
Yeah, it does. It does. I'll tell you why. Purity, the word for purity is also chastity.
Wow.
Pure. If the action carried out does not involve the other person physically, but the action that is carried out is not pure, it already makes it impure. Besides, in the scripture, Jesus says that he who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed the sin. Wow. He didn't go to the woman physically to sleep with her. No, True. It's the same sin.
True. Before we go on, let's take a break. It's time for the Know Your Faith session. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Know Your Faith. Today we want to discuss something that I'm sure many of us haven't even thought about it. I know you're probably thinking, what can that topic possibly be? What is Jeffrey saying? What have we not thought about? It's simple. Can Catholic priests retire? I guess you have it. Yeah, I know. We know that for workers in secular organizations, the choice to retire is based on health, finances, and other factors, while most individuals over the age of 65 remain employed by need rather than by choice for economic reasons. Retirement for priests is rather complex. That is. In many dioceses, the retirement policies require a minimum age of 70, a specific number of years in ministry, and the permission of the bishop. Other dioceses hold to the above policies, with full retirement only possible at the age of 75. So to answer the question, yes, a priest can retire, but unlike workers in secular organization, it's not as simple. It depends on the discretion of the bishop of the diocese. There are a lot of policies which are to be met. These policies differ from diocese to diocese. Some of the common policies that guide the retirement of priests are: number 1, a minimum age of 70, 2, a specific number of years in ministry, and 3, the permission of the bishop. So when you see that priest in your church that is probably 80 years old or 80 plus, and you're thinking, is he not going to retire? You've learned today. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you for watching this video. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Dominican Media Present. Hit the notification bell. Like the video. Like it. I know you like it, so don't hide that red hat. Press it. Share it to your friends, and of course, till next time, you know the slogan: be bold, be Catholic.
Welcome back, and our discussion is still centered on, is sex chatting or sin? Before the break, Padre, you were making us to understand that sexual purity can be defiled by sex chatting. I would like you to make our viewers understand what is the spiritual implication for engaging in sex chatting.
Spiritual implications for engaging in sexual chatting. Number 1 is a rejection of God's purpose and principles in your life.
Wow.
God is the author of sexual intercourse. He created it.
Yeah.
There was a purpose for it. And that purpose was unitive and procreative. You are open to life, is unitive. That's within marriage. Now, when the individual says, I want to have a sex chat with my partner and the rest, it is an opposition of God's values and principle for that purpose. So in other words, it's almost like idolatry.
Wow.
Yeah, you are actually making your sexual gratification God in your life. So it has a strong implication. It breaks that bond of relationship between the individual and God. And that's why often I don't think anyone has ever met me and said in the art of confession or something, I say, Father, I did this and I'm proud of it. No. Most cases that people who get involved in that action always leave it with guilt, brokenness, emptiness. Because they seek something that only the divine can give. And that is geared only when our sexual energies and sexual inclinations are tied with God's will. So it has a strong implication for a spiritual life.
Are there resources that are available for individuals who may be struggling with addiction or other negative consequences that are related to sex chatting?
I do not know if there are government-approved programs and the likes, but I do know that in certain churches, you have those support groups. Okay. For instance, I work in Ibadan and I work in a support group with some young persons. You may have mentors who you truly understand and believe to be mature about these things. They could be resource persons, but it's a very, very salient question because there's need for that too. There's need, maybe probably the church and probably experts need to explore more to see if there are support groups for helping people out.
Padre, I would like to ask this one question. For parents who do not believe or accept that sex should be talked about in the house, they wouldn't want to mention it at devotion, they won't want to say it at any point in time, they won't want it to be mentioned to their children, what would you advise such parents if at all their children grows up to engage in anything that defiles them sexually?
As a parent, you have an obligation to educate your children. And education is not only streamlined to academics in classrooms. They also have to learn about their faith, learn about sexuality, learn about friendship. So I encourage parents, please speak about it. It's not a taboo. Speak about it. Let your children understand what sexuality truly means. Let them see you as parents, as models of this, and develop a bond of trust and friendship with your children. That's when it is much more easier to speak about things like this. That way you guide them and they don't fall into the wrong hands. And even when they are confused, they can actually meet you to talk about it.
Thank you very much, Padre. Your perspective is very refreshing. I know now and I'm confident that you are enlightened about sex chatting. Sex chatting is a sin. It puts you in enmity with God. If you're a parent and you're watching this, you have to create a bond with your children. You are not only to concern yourself with their academics, but everything that concerns their faith, their belief, and every of their activities should be supervised and monitored. We have come to the end of our discussion today. Thank you once again, Padre. It's a pleasure that you took so much time to be here with me to discuss this topic. And thanks to you too for staying with us to the end. Do not hesitate to drop your comments and suggestions in the comment section. Subscribe, turn on your notifications, and follow us at CFF on TV on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Till next time, I remain Evelyn Iwoha. Keep being sent in jeans and shirts. Bye-bye.